Welcome everyone to Building Materials Marketing Unboxed. This is season 2, episode 10, and if you are checking us out live, you are here for a very special and groundbreaking episode here on season 2, episode 10. Today we have our very first live panel, and it's featuring some really great experts and fantastic people that I enjoy talking with. Today's show title is The Future of American Living Spaces and How Manufacturers Should Respond. And today's discussion panel features Michaela Arroyo, Diana Vidal, and Tim Sims. And so rather than give you a big, long introduction and everything, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But for those of you that are watching live, I ask that you please interact with us. If you like what you're hearing, go ahead and let us know. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, if you're on YouTube, and of course, where we love to hang out, if you're on LinkedIn, please give us some applause, give us some thumbs up, likes, whatever. Interact with us if you like what you're hearing. And of course, if you have questions, please ask them while we are here live on the show, and we'll try to get to them. And if we don't, we'll get in touch with you offline. So rather than go through the big introduction here, what I'd like to do is I would like to go ahead and have you meet our panel. So let us meet our panelists here. And we're going to start with Diana. Diana, welcome to the show. And tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do. Give us a fun fact.
Yeah, so I work for John Burns's New Home Trends Institute, and my role there is to track design trends and to see how they're being implemented across the industry and how our industry as a whole can start to cross-integrate. So what building products are doing, how that interacts with what architects are doing, builders, developers, etc. And a fun fact about me is that I have started paddleboarding recently. Some might say I'm paddleboarding obsessed, but I've located in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I paddleboard on the bay. It's a lot of fun and pretty warm water, surprisingly.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much. Let us now meet Michaela. So Michaela, take it away. Tell us what you do, where you're coming from, and give us a fun fact as well.
Sure. Michaela Arroyo. I work with Deanna at the New Home Trends Institute. I'm our director of New Home Trends Institute, and I work specifically more on the consumer survey side of the piece. So Deanna's got all the design, and I've got all the consumer knowledge to share with you today. And a fun fact, my fun fact is that I learned to decorate cakes by watching Cake Boss. So I'm a big fan of decorating cakes. I don't get to do it as much as I'd like to because I have a 2-year-old daughter, but if I had to pick a hobby, that's the one I'm going with.
Do you use a lot of rice cakes, or not rice cakes, but yes, you do in the
Rice Krispie treats.
Rice Krispie, that's right.
Because it's so much lighter. Yeah, your cakes are 50% Rice Krispie treats. That's for sure.
I always wanted to know that, so thank you so much for educating me. I love it. I'm a huge fan of Cake Boss as well, so shout out to the Cake Boss and all of our friends there in Jersey. That is awesome. So those of you that are watching live, you might notice that there is also another person here as well, and that's Tim Sims. Now, he will be joining us a little bit later during the show, so let's just get right to it. And Deanna, I'm going to ask you our first question. What should everyone in your space, what should we start doing?
Here's where if you know me, you've probably heard this before. I say it a lot. I believe in talking to people outside the industry just as much as we talk to people inside of the industry. And it helps bring in different perspectives on what's going on and what might influence our industry. So if we're thinking about what people want in their homes, in their kitchens, in their bathrooms, thinking about what's happening in the food industry, what's happening in the fashion industry, if you're working with cars, what's going on in the auto industry? What are they changing? I'll give you an example real quick. For example, with all of the new luxury cars that have the doors that open up like wings, they need wider garages. What does that mean for everything that's happening? Something to think about.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think those conversations really need to be based on research, and specifically research into the consumer's lifestyle changes and the pain points that come with that. And what we found really frequently in housing research in general is that a lot of times we ask people, what are your preferences? So what do you want? Do you want granite countertop or do you want quartz countertop? And there's a couple of issues that we see from there. On the one hand, it often underrates new products or innovative products that the consumer might want if they knew it existed. They just don't know it's out there and therefore don't select that option on a survey. And then also it deviates from real behavior because they're not actually purchasing the countertop at that point. They're just saying, I think I like this. So when push comes to shove, their choice might actually be different. But when you inquire about the pain points, and then our position from there is to be the experts and say, here's what could solve that pain point, we find that you get a lot closer to the real solution.
Do you find, just a follow-up question for you, Michaela, based on what you just said, do you find that a lot of people, they need to see it? Oh, I want this granite countertop. I think I want this granite countertop, but I want to see what it looks like in an actual home, whether that's a model. They want to see beyond just the catalog. Do you see that a lot?
I think, yes, you want to see beyond the catalog, but it's everything. I want to know the price. I want to know if I'm going to be chopping a lot on this countertop, what's the most durable. There's so many different considerations that go into when you're actually making the leap and putting money behind your preference, that just saying simply at face value, granite sounds good.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That is very helpful. So, Michaela, let's continue with you. Let me ask the next question. What is a recent insight that you've been analyzing that you think building material manufacturers definitely need to focus on?
Sure. Yeah, this is good timing for this one. We actually just finished a report where we surveyed a bunch of architectural designers in partnership with Professional Builder Magazine, and we found this interesting trend that supports duplication of fixtures and appliances, maybe even countertops, within a single home. And we called it sink mania because we feel like sinks are the ones that we're really seeing the most. And where we got this idea was that in our survey, we found 68% of architectural designers said that outdoor kitchens were one of the most often included outdoor features in their residential projects. So we've noticed a rise in outdoor kitchens. That just confirmed it. And then we've also seen the rise in ADU units, lock-off units, multi-generational suites, whatever you want to call them. But our survey confirmed 52% included some sort of lock-off unit in at least some of the projects that they worked on, designing for future homes that are going to be built. And those multi-generational suites, they usually at least have a mini fridge and a sink. Sometimes they even have that full kitchen peninsula with the dishwasher and the microwave and everything that goes with it. And then in our kitchen survey, we heard from our architect clients that they are seeing a big increase, especially in the luxury side, of prep kitchens, back kitchens, that secondary kitchen. And then our last sink room is the mud room or the laundry room. Even before COVID, we started to see some designers including sinks in that space. That accelerated because of COVID. So all four of those pieces together supports the idea that we just have little kitchens and particularly sinks popping up all over the house.
So let's count that real quick. There's a normal kitchen, there's a back kitchen, there's a outdoor kitchen, and if you have an ADU, there could be an ADU kitchen. That's 4 kitchens on one property. That's a lot of kitchen. Think about it like that. So sink mania and kitchen mania, yes, for sure. I'm looking more towards elevations right now. So Michaela covered a lot of what's happening on the inside of the house. I was looking at elevations, and it's amazing what's happening. It's on my radar, I guess, is the best way to put it. And when we did the architecture survey with Professional Builder, it showed that 25% of architectural designers tried a new exterior elevational material last year. That's 1 in every 4 designers that are designing homes tried a new exterior material last year. We felt like that was a little shocking. So we did a little digging, and it looks like it's about right after we dug into the details. And it's not just about them trying new things. When we asked why they were trying new materials, it was to achieve a certain look and feel. There were some issues about durability or some cladding issues there, so they were maybe trying some things that were more durable. But the one that rose to the top was achieving a certain look and feel. And one of the ways that they're doing that is by mixing and matching materials more. So it looks like around 3 is the average number of exterior materials. And that's really changing what our streets look like. That's what's getting our elevations. And if you look through communities, it's giving them a good variety so that you're not just seeing stucco for 4 blocks. You're not just seeing cladding for 4 blocks. You're starting to see these materials and textures come in. If you look into the report, we actually have two really cool charts. One that shows where materials fall when it comes to cost versus the durability scale and which is more important. And we also have a chart that looks at cost versus look and feel and how architects are ranking them. So what's more important, cost versus durability, and then the look and feel.
Do you find that a lot of architects would prefer to work with materials that they're familiar with rather than something that's brand new? So what would account for this new, just trying whatever it takes?
I think, well, 1 in 4, it sounds like, is open to looking at new materials that they've never tried before. But I think as they learn more and they're more well educated about what it is and they know what's out there that can help them achieve what they're trying to do, the more open they are to doing it. And then you also have to realize that within the housing industry, a lot of them are relying on what it is that the builders want too. So it's not only educating the architect about what's available, it's educating the builders about what's available because sometimes they're the ones that are making the final decision. So it's not just about the architect's preference anymore, which I think is a common thing that we think about in our industry, that the architect's calling all the shots, and that's not necessarily the case.
That's exactly where I was going to go with that. If it's possible that the contractor could say, listen, Ms. Architect, I know you understand that you want this material, but I think you can accomplish the same thing and get a different look if you use this material. So would you say it's more collaborative in that sense?
I can't speak for all architects out there, so I can tell you what I've heard. And I think that at the end of the day, it's whoever owns the final product and whoever's responsible for it is the one that's really making the decisions. So it might be in a different project, it might be a different person. It might be the builder, it might be the contractor, it might be the client, it might be the architect.
Next question. Let's stick with you, Tiana. Let's see. What's a commonly held belief in your industry that you just passionately disagree with? Oh, this ought to be good. She's laughing already.
I'm going to try to keep this brief. So I hear people all the time talk about that they're relying on their gut instinct. Well, my gut told me this. My gut says this. And I believe that we should trust your gut. I would never tell anybody to not trust their gut. Just don't let that be the only thing that you're using to make decisions. So if you're using your gut, your executive team's gut, or just a handful of people in order to make decisions, you're relying on your experiences, you're relying on your perspective. And the likelihood that your perspective mirrors that of hundreds, sometimes hundreds of thousands of families or individuals that are going to live in a home or use your product is doing it a disservice. So the more information that we can get from what's happening and what different people are experiencing and how different people are going to use a product or live in a home, the better we are. And then you can use your gut as a way to check that. But if you're starting off with just your gut, or you're only relying on your gut, are you really doing your company and your product a service to help better understand what and how it's going to be used?
So good. I love that. Michaela, how about you? Same question. What are your thoughts? What do you
Yeah,
passionately disagree with?
Yeah, if you can't tell, we're research nerds over here. We love to do our research. I would say mine is that there's a lot of talk right now about the home being wildly different because of COVID and due to COVID, and that these changes are because of profound shifts because of COVID, due to changing needs that address COVID. What we have found as we've dug into it is that there are some things, specifically like the home office, that are going to change a little bit, but really all of the shifts we've noticed are things that people wanted before anyways. It's the good home workspace, a great outdoor entertainment area. Nothing was really new. Nothing was really something that came directly out of COVID. It was taking all of the things that people already wanted, putting it on the radar of the people who have the ability to include that into homes, and then saying, hey, this accelerated, you should really pay attention to it now.
And if
So
you
would you?
look at trends as a whole, that's how they happen. Trends don't just appear overnight. They become more and more popular. And then in this case, we had an event that accelerated it rapidly, but a lot of times they just slowly grow and grow and grow. So if you think that a trend is going to pop up out of the middle of nowhere at some point and you're going to stay ahead of it, it's really paying attention to those early indicators. And in this case, COVID just accelerated things that we already had on our radar.
It sounds to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like a lot of people, hey, I'm going to be spending a lot more time in my home. I've always wanted to have, and then insert whatever the desired dream was. And like you said, would you say that COVID then accelerated that and just said, now's the time to do it? If I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it.
Well, it explains why flex spaces are on the rise. We've heard from all of our architect friends that flex spaces are increasing and that they do have different programmatic elements. And so it's the things that rise to the top is I really want that home office now, or I really want that gym now. Those two things seem to float to the top, but also being able to have a space that'll serve multiple functions. And there's so many different really creative solutions that people are coming up with right now for that.
I love it. That sounds great. Michaela, I'm going to ask you the next question. Why don't you start us off? So you had mentioned that you guys are data nerds. So along with that, and that's fine, and you celebrate that, I appreciate it greatly because I am the same way. We're cut from the same cloth. So you obviously do a lot of research and everything. So what could manufacturers do to make their online as well as offline researchers, customers, people like you, what can manufacturers do to make them basically make those researchers happier with them?
Sure. Yeah, I think you can look at this from two sides. You can look at it from the consumer perspective and then also the professional facing side. So maybe I'll address consumer and then I'll kick it over to Deanna for the professional side. I think for consumers, it's really about not assuming that they have the same knowledge base as the experts does, as the industry professional does, because they really don't. And it gets us into a lot of issues where, for example, we've seen with certifications, a lot of times people will say, oh, this home is certified in this way. And when you ask the consumer about it, half of them don't even know what that means at all, let alone be willing to pay a lot more for it. So just knowing that they have a different base knowledge of it that you're working from, you have to build that foundation before they will value a tagline, a certification, a feature like that. And what we've found with the healthy home side is that a lot of times it's the lifestyle that resonates a lot more than the specific product or feature. So for example, if you were to say, this is easy to clean, they like that. If you say this has antibacterial surface, they don't like that as much. It doesn't resonate as much because the easy to clean is just so clear what the lifestyle benefit is. You don't have to take that extra step.
I also would add that calling it what it is sometimes isn't the worst thing. So Indoor Air Quality Plus, it literally says awesome indoor air quality in the name versus hers or some of those other ratings. And so that's why they become more popular with the consumer because they understand what it means. Whereas that's the case on the consumer facing side. On the professional facing side, they'll educate themselves. You have to give them access to what they need to know. So if I'm an architect or I'm somebody who's speccing materials for a builder, I need to know every detail that I can. So it needs to be really easy for us to understand all the different versions. So like, let's say that you're a countertop, because we were using that as an example earlier. I need to know how many of your products there are and what all the differences are and how they get installed and how I need to draw them in and how I need to spec them and if they can be substituted. Also with value engineering on the rise, we've heard a lot that people are trying to reduce costs because costs have gotten a little crazy during COVID, even more so than they were before, that sometimes they need to make a swap really fast or they need to pick the value engineering version to help the cost go down. But if something's going to get into your workflow. All of a sudden, you're like, I know I'm going to have my countertops in 2 months, and then you don't have it available. Give them what the options are, to the alternative options are. Give them what products are going to be easy, comparable solutions that will be a good substitute if they can't get that product or if they do have to make a value engineering decision.
So much good information right there. And it looks like Tim is joining us right now. Welcome, Tim. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you. That's perfect. So let's move you over to Tim. Why don't you say hello? Why don't you introduce yourself? What do you do? And give us a fun fact.
Okay, so fun fact. I am, well, let me start with introducing myself. Tim Sims from John Burns Real Estate Consulting, but I'm actually on the building products team. So we do off-the-shelf research, and we are also a consulting shop for the building products, building materials industry. I run our, along with helping out with different things, I run our dealer survey. And so we get a lot of insights from all these different things. And like probably Michaela and Deanna have shared, we take these and we try and get them out there so they can be digestible and usable. These kind of flash insights along the way, and then also very deep dive research and survey work.
Love it.
And a fun fact. You wanted a fun fact, right, Will? Okay, so fun fact is I love sidecar motorcycles. Normally I would be in a treehouse. I'm not in a treehouse right now, but I'll give you some flowers and a painting back there. So, but anyhow, those are a couple of facts. I love waffles and bacon. So those are, I guess, it depends on how fun those seem to people.
I was going to ask if you decorated the treehouse for us, Tim, but I guess you're just not in the treehouse.
Now, Tim is also an alumnus of the Mark Mitchell, the Wizard Summit, and he did deliver his talk from his insights from the treehouse. I do remember that, and you beat me to it because I was going to say, Tim, why aren't you in the treehouse? What's going on? So again, just another great example of just meeting fantastic people from the Wizard Summit. So it's great to have you with us, Tim. And I think your fun fact about bacon and waffles, that's just nutrition. I don't know if that's fun, but it's certainly enjoyable to eat. So thanks for being here. Hey, I got another question. Michaela, I'm going to go back to you. Okay, so Tim, thanks for introducing yourself. You can relax for a little bit, and then we're going to really get into things with you, okay? So Michaela, the next question is actually for you here. So we're going to start with you. So tell me some of the trade-offs different homeowner
So I lost audio. Could you guys hear Will?
You know what?
again?
That's totally my fault. That is in me. So we're gonna fix that in post production because I left myself on mute. So
That's okay. I think I know where you're
Operator
going
error.
with it. So
So-
I can go ahead and jump right in. You were talking trade-offs that different homeowners are making by demographic to accommodate that changing need for work from home.
you should just take over the show. That was exactly what I'm talking about. Great job. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Well, we are well equipped to answer this. We did actually a
Excellent.
two-part report series on work from home. We actually are in the process of fielding a survey right now to update those results to see how things have changed over the year. We don't have those results in yet, but we did ask in that first round, what would you give up to improve your work from home space, specifically to people who did work from home during the COVID period? And we found young singles and couples, they are the most space constrained. So doubling up with a guest bedroom for them works really well if they have a guest bedroom. A lot of times they don't. So what we're seeing a lot to solve for that is a lot of pocket offices, and they would take the space of what would probably otherwise be storage. They're tucked into hallways, they're tucked in little niches off the kitchen. Wherever you place them, they're really just compact, exactly what you need to have a space to put your desk and all your stuff so that you're not working off the kitchen table. And then families, particularly young families who are not in that move up home yet and they don't have space to give up to create a home workspace, the last thing they want to trade off is a bedroom. And so frequently what we see on the new home sales side is that the option is you can have a bedroom or you can have an office. And that is the absolute last option that they want because they need that bedroom for their family. And what they would rather give up is to reduce that off of common area space. So what we've found that is even better than taking away livable space is to make a swap that they won't miss. So a great example that we saw is a builder took the volume over the great room and they optioned that as a retreat off of the primary bedroom. So if you're a family, you need the extra space, you need a workspace, great. You take the retreat and you have your perfect private workspace. If you don't need that space, then you get the wow factor of volume over the great room. And it's a trade-off that both sides would be happy with. And then on the empty nester retiree side, they really don't want to trade anything for a better workspace. They typically already have the space that they need to have something private that's doable. And if they don't, they really have the least privacy issues with working at something like a dining table.
And then if you dig into some of the things that work across all demographics, no matter where they are in their life stage, storage. So it showed up when we ask about work from home, it showed up in kitchens, it showed up in bathrooms, even healthy home. People are trying to be more organized. I don't know if it's because we've had to spend more time at our homes or because our lives are getting more chaotic or maybe a little bit of both. But storage is got to be there, and it can't be storage for storage sake. It needs to be thoughtful. And when we talk to consumers, it's something that's got to be a little different. We know that that giant bulk storage closet is useful for certain things, but it doesn't serve the same purpose as, those small cabinets that perfectly fit your hairdryer in your bathroom. Different kind of storage solution. And then even if it's a thoughtfully placed plug within the drawer of the bathroom, a very different solution that's helping solve a storage issue versus if you think about those pop-up appliance garages in the kitchen. They're all storage solutions. So you can't say like, well, we have this big giant closet over here for you to put all your pantry items in and think that check, the storage solution is solved. You really have to think about how they're going to be used in different places within the home and how you can optimize and what's the appropriate size, material, and function that it needs to serve in order to best optimize how the consumer is going to use it.
So really planned storage versus just a junk drawer, or some people have a junk room.
Yeah, and
Yes.
also just creative storage. Like as we are seeing all of these functions being crammed into the home now with the fitness space and your work from home space, and maybe you need 2 separate office spaces because you have 2 people working from home. It's a lot of times taking away from storage. That's the thing that gets subbed out in its place. So instead of just subbing it out and saying that's your trade-off, we're seeing really creative options that allow you to place stuff up high. Can you put stuff down low where people won't necessarily expect it? But it's like the little nooks and crannies that we're seeing being taken advantage of.
I love it. Just the planned spaces and I like the nooks and crannies. That's terrific because there's a place for, right? Don't they say that in organization that there's a place for everything and everything has its place? So if it's almost like a puzzle. This hairdryer fits in this space because it was meant for it. I love it. This is great. I love all these insights. These are fantastic. So, Michaela, let's stick with you for a second. Tell me about sister cities. And tell me about residents moving to sister cities and how that impacts the building materials sector and their distribution networks, things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So we recently wrote an article, our teammate Devin Bachman led it, on sister cities. And the idea is that these smaller cities that are by nearby large metros are benefiting a lot, and they're stealing people who are moving over to the small cities. And a lot of that is due to that work from home that we're hearing about. The buyers and renters, they're not required to come into the office every day. So that longer commute is more acceptable when you only have to do it 1, 2, maybe 0 times in a week. And we surveyed homeowners, like I mentioned, back August. We found that the number of owned households who plan to have somebody working from home in the future is going to increase about 80%, from 5 million to about 9 million. And then we are redoing those results. So we'll give you a picture of how it's changed over time, but we are expecting a sizable increase of people who expect to work from home for a moderate amount of time during the week, allowing them to take that step and move a little bit further out than they were living before.
Well, and if you look at the exterior of the homes, I know that there's been a lot of talk of don't California my Texas, or why do I need all this New England stuff in Florida? And so within the sister cities, it's probably not going to change what's happening on the exterior of the home as much. So if somebody's moving from LA to Bakersfield, or from Denver to Colorado Springs, or on the East Coast from Raleigh to Greensboro, it's not going to change. Their preferences aren't going to shift that much. It's really the cross country shifts or the region to region shifts. So if somebody's moving from the Pacific Northwest to Texas, what preferences are they taking with them? What expectations are they taking with them? If they're moving from California to Florida, what are those expectations? If they're moving from New England to Colorado, that's where we start to see the mix happening. And we've actually, I'll give you one example really quickly. We heard from one of our developers that a bunch of California residents had moved into this community in Texas, and that they were sharing, like, oh, when did you make the shift? When did you make the shift? And then what it became is that they had these plants planted through the HOA in front of the homes. And the Californians were like, we can't have these plants. They're a fire hazard. These plants are known to catch on fire really easily. But they live in a part of Texas where it rains all the time. And so in their mind, they just know that these plants aren't good if you live in a fire-ridden place like California. But where they lived in Texas, it wouldn't be an issue, but they could not get over that stigmatism that they had in their mind that these plants equaled bad.
That's a really great example. I like that a lot. They just couldn't, that experience of living in California, living through the trauma of wildfires, they just brought that with them. That's a great example. Tim, I want to get you into the mix here, and I want to ask you a question about the rise of build to rent. What should manufacturers be doing to become relevant to these investors and project decision makers?
Well, there are a few things. So one is, what do these developers and investors actually invest in? And what we found in our research, and we talked about at our building products event this spring, was the amount of increased spend in building materials and more durable, long-lasting, sort of guest-friendly building materials. They spend more in that space. And why is that? It's because when they're doing their raise, that fund is paying for 200 homes or 100 homes or whatever, and they want to do that raise once and not have to do like a capital call to investors after 7 years or something like that. Because over a portfolio size, that would be a sizable capital call, especially if accruals didn't cover, say, inflation or cost of labor to do those things. And we know that there's a labor shortage for that anyway. So how can you de-risk that situation? Well, you spend money on the upfront side. So communicating that, the benefits, the durability of the product, the resilience of the product, and there's a huge push from those that invest in those funds that fund these projects that to have a strong ESG strategy. So if you have a durable product, resilient product for a resilient home and community that you have a strong ESG strategy backing, then that's going to be something that really resonates with them. But it has to be communicated. So it should definitely be part of your content strategy. And it should also be part of the rethinking the go-to-market. Some of these folks are building their own products, self-performing. They want to, maybe they want to buy direct, or maybe they want a more direct relationship and still purchase local. There needs to be creativity with the go-to-market strategy, along with these other sort of the Marcom side of it, and the product development side of it. So those are some things that should really weigh. And then they should also think too about, what, when you think of like a connected home, what to them that means something else. Their maintenance, their facilities people want to know, okay, water sensing or leak sensing or something like that communicates more to them and their facilities folks, as well as sort of the customer experience of their tenants, and that sort of retail facing side of the connected home. Those all got to work together to really be successful. And so that takes a lot, especially if you have a building material that's not really lends itself to that. Is that something that should be part of your strategy? So those are things that folks should be thinking about and interested in.
Yeah, I'll add that durability is a huge one, because if you're not offloading the home to a home buyer, you're the one maintaining it, upkeep. You definitely want it to not get damaged easily. So that durability, it extends really from the big obvious stuff like the flooring, you don't want it to get damaged, the countertops, you don't want it to get damaged, but also innovative solutions that allow the home to flex from owner to owner with minimal effort required. So for example, now we heard at one of our recent council meetings that build for rent operators have to define one TV wall. Usually builders will try and give you a few options. They have to pick one, because if you have different tenants coming in and they each choose a different wall, you're going to have a lot of mess to clean up as they each pick a new spot. So how can we create some solutions that allow more flexibility within the home, which is a theme we keep hearing about as you switch from tenant to tenant? And then another thing is that we're designing around maintenance on the build for rent side. So instead of putting the laundry room where the consumer might want it, it's got to be put downstairs closer to where a service person might come in so that they can fix it without having to walk through your entire house. So like Tim mentioned, the monitoring the maintenance is another huge consideration.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Will, that the any kind of like building system, building science innovation that may come into this space, the for sale space is not necessarily embracing, especially in large production builders, not really embracing building systems as quickly as folks might like. Where you will see that happen a lot faster is in the build for rent space, because their optics on and time horizon totally different than for sale, like Michaela mentioned, and it's much longer time horizon, right? So they're looking at things a little differently. They also don't have to worry about appraisals. Their valuations are based on a completely different set of metrics. So you could see ostensibly that CLT or mass timber, you could see 3D construction, you could see different kind of advanced panelization in build for rent at mass adoption within the space faster than you would see it percentage wise in the for sale space.
That's a really good point, Tim, because within the build for rent space, this is where the opportunity is for innovation, because you can do things instead of once for one person, you can do it 200 times. And so a lot of times there's more repetition there. And so that's where we can potentially, I hope, start seeing things move even faster on the innovation track.
All good things right there. Tim, I want to go back to something that you had mentioned. Talk to me a little bit about connected homes. Do you foresee connected homes becoming a disruptor to the industry? And what challenges do you think are present?
I think a really good example of integration, which has really been the catalyst for a connected home, and will continue to be that, to make that integration makes that space more credible. So is Lake Nona in Florida. So that's not just a connected home, that's a connected community. There's a lot of communication that needs to happen between building materials manufacturers and the technology providers, and then of course facilities, security. There's all these things that have to come together, and it really begs the need to start that communication early. The planning for that started several years ago, and then as as product innovation sped up, they were able to adopt those on the fly where possible. And so there's that part of it. On the consumer facing side, that experience is kind of very fluid and elegant and enjoyable. That adds to the quality of life. So that's a very important checkbox, right? The quality of life. And when we did one of the New Home Trends Institute surveys, talked about the usability. So people saying like, sometimes I have to shut it off because it's just quicker to just go over and do it myself instead of using the app or whatever. All those things need to be very easy. But then there's the other side of it on the monitoring, as far as, is there moisture getting behind the cladding? Are the windows have potential leak? Is there something happening in the building that we should know about? Especially in areas where there are strong HOA and high sort of homeowners dues. People don't want to be surprised by assessments. So all those things play into the long-term viability of connected home. I'm not sure disruption is necessarily the word I would use. It's more, I think, more in terms of adoption. And the real important thing for folks to consider is that things are happening at a very quick rate and faster. And if you haven't read the book Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth, folks should definitely read that, because it demonstrates how quickly things are happening. And building product manufacturers, the way they could get disrupted is by letting it pass them by. So you may even think that, okay, I make this product, it's not really connected to anything technologically or in the IoT. But if you dive deep, you might find that there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, Tim, you hit on a couple things that I just want to highlight real quick. One of them is I cannot go in between my walls and know what's happening with my plumbing and my electricity very easily. So huge opportunity there. I can get up and turn the radio on, turn the TV on or off, or turn my music or lights on and off, right? Things that are kind of in between there are, do I know if somebody's at my house while I'm not home? Can I turn the oven off from my car if I get 5 miles away from home and realize I left it on? Those are the things that are helping people do things they cannot do themselves. Those are the things that enhance life, and they also reduce risk. So if you know that there's a water leak before, it's going to help reduce your risk. I actually wonder how much insurance companies are paying attention to that, but not my area of expertise. But all of this data and all of having multiple devices in your home, on the consumer side, their biggest hesitation is around privacy and security. And so how secure is it if I have a device in every room and if I have all these things connected? And so we have to keep that in mind, that if it has to do with making them feel more secure, probably going to be adopted a little faster. If they're not sure what's happening with their data or how secure your connection is, they might be more hesitant. But if you look into some of the reports that we've done, especially our smart home report, you can start to see that we believe there's room for adoption on a lot of fronts. And so we just got to get there, and we've got to make it so that it's easier for the consumer and that it's solving issues for them, not just making the small conveniences.
Where can we get a copy of that smart home report?
Just call me.
Connect with you on LinkedIn? Like, where do you like to hang out,
I'm on LinkedIn. I actually turned my LinkedIn off for this so that I wasn't distracted, but I typically have my LinkedIn open, or you can email us or go to the New Home Trends Institute website, newhometrendsinstitute.org, and reach out to us there.
Perfect. That's what I'll be doing next. So very interested. The great information there. Tim, I want to go back to you and ask you a question. So you told everyone about I keep muting myself. So let's try this again. So take two. I need like a clapper here, Hollywood style with Will Smith here. So you mentioned this book. What was it again? Future.
It's The Price of Tomorrow by
Okay,
Jeff Booth. He used to be he was a founder or co-founder of Build Direct.
Okay, so The Price of Tomorrow, book that we should start reading. So let's go to the reverse. What should everyone stop doing that you see in this space? What should they stop doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I feel like our industry gets picked on a lot, and we pick on ourselves and say we should stop doing this, stop doing that, and there are a lot of rants that can happen. I'll just give you one, because I'm actually really proud of our industry, and I think there's been a lot of advancement and there's an undercurrent and desire and appetite for it. But one thing I would say is I see the word innovation a lot, and innovation is not really it's not a step change. It's a pretty big deal. So we should stop calling like paint color changes or floor plan changes or higher density product. Thoughtful amenitization. Those are not innovative. Those are like those are table stakes. So what we really should be looking at innovation as, okay, let's take as an analog Uber and say, they went into a space, they didn't have medallions, they didn't have permits to do what they did. It was all about velocity, and they got so big so fast that they really were unstoppable. So that is disruptive innovation. Now, are people in our industry going to do that? That's a question left to be answered. But it has to be more than a step change to be innovation and innovative. It has to really solve a problem that others haven't solved in a unique and affordable way, so it can be adopted quickly.
Tim and I think very similarly when it comes to these types of things. So, yes, I agree. If it's going to be innovative, it's truly got to be changing. But sometimes what we think is innovative, let's use the right word. Let's call it better, stronger, the next thing, the more advanced version of it, if it's something that's already out there. If you're not creating something that's already out, that's solving a new problem or really rapidly disrupting things, like let's call it innovation or pick the appropriate word for it. But if I could just jump in and tell you my pet peeve and that I wish the thing we would stop doing is thinking short term. I think that especially if you're publicly traded, you have a tendency to think quarter over quarter or year over year. And if that's going to stop you from innovating, back to the innovation thing, if you're not looking at what we're going to need in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 years, we really got to make sure that at least somebody in all these organizations they have their eye 10 years out, 20 years out, or 30 years out, so that we can get there. So if you're thinking quarter over quarter, you're not going to get there. You've got to think farther out than that.
And one thing about that book, to go along with that, The Price of Tomorrow, is there's a mention of how many times you need to fold a piece of paper so that it's thick enough to reach from the earth to the moon. And it's a remarkably low number. And it just is to illustrate how quickly things happen. So really getting folks to think past a quarter to 2 years would be a win. But there are people out there that we talk to that are thinking, 10, 20 years out. And that's just refreshing. And not everyone can do that, I understand, but it's important to have those conversations anyway, and it doesn't hurt to have those conversations.
I think that's a great point. So many people are just thinking of what can you do for me today? What's happening right now? What's going on right now? Or what's going on next quarter? So to kind of sum up what you just said, stop using the word innovative, because it's not. It's one of those overused words, almost like love. Oh, I love pizza. I love my dog. I love my cat. And then when you actually tell, your spouse that your significant other that you love them, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I'm on the same level as the cat and pizza. Fantastic. So innovation, I think, is the same kind of thing. Like, you can think of marketers just sitting there. We need a word for new. Oh, let's use innovative. That seems to be good. So I think that's great advice for pretty much anyone out there. Stop using the word innovative unless you're truly going to be innovative. And the way to do that is to think in the future. So, Tim, I think you kind of alluded to this a little bit. What do you think? And I asked everyone else on the panel this question. What do you think everyone should start doing in this space?
Well, I'm going to go a little granular on this and say that this doesn't happen enough, and that's, I guess, why it lends to the question. But the CEOs and leaders at building product manufacturers and LBMs should be on the phone regularly with clients that are out in the field with their tool bags on, with the end users, the consumers, who, as far away from their business to where the product is used, installed, whatever. They should be talking to those folks more often to get the feedback and hear the voice of the customer, of the client, and understand what their pinch points are, what's giving them heartburn. And that's going to do two things. It gives visibility to fix problems, which is great because most leaders are good problem solvers. The other part of that is it actually can really feed the content, because if you're feeding your content with the voice of the customer, then it does powerful things for your search results and your SEO. So there are multiple reasons. There are 100 reasons to do that. And the only one reason to not do that, and that is I don't have enough time. Leaders need to be talking to the end users, and even if they're not the purchaser of the product. The other thing I'd say is start doing is, okay, don't just use the ESG kind of nomenclature. Look at it seriously as part of this. This isn't going away, so it's actually affecting boards of companies and leaders of companies. Their jobs are in question because they're not spending enough time on this. So really make it genuinely part of the business and part of the day-to-day culture and language.
Michaela, quick question for you. How do you feel about most building materials manufacturers' websites?
Sure. Yeah. So I think I'm going to stay on the positive side. I know Deanna and Tim, I think, are going to have more of the critiques. I think we've seen a lot of improvement. The silver lining. No, I think we've seen a lot of improvement recently, particularly on the consumer-facing side. We've seen a lot of quizzes that narrow down products for you. I know Anderson has one. I know Sherwin-Williams has a really cool one where you choose through like a couch that you like and a table that you like, and then they give you a customized color palette. And I think that really resonates with consumers today who feel like they're getting this real unique to them personalized experience. It's not necessarily personalized one-to-one because it's based off of a quiz and many different people are getting the same results, but it feels like it's true to you. And I know Kohler has one too where they give you a quiz to take and then they give you a customized Pinterest board. So I think the more that we can lean into that customized, personalized feel as you walk through a website, the better.
I see my face show up, so I think that I'm...
Your turn, yep. Same question. How do you feel? Give it to us straight.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't spend a lot of time on building products websites, but I do talk to a lot of builders and architects and designers and interior designers and people in the field. So, and I knew you were going to ask me this question, so I've been doing some digging in preparation for this.
We would expect nothing less.
We do like to research around here. That is
I've heard that rumor.
So I did a little asking around, a little talking around, and at the end of the day, there's not enough actionable data. And so we need to figure out how to, one, make it easier to find exactly what we're looking for. That no matter who it is that's looking for it, think about it from the consumer, think about it from the person who's purchasing it, thinking about it from the person who's drawing it, thinking about it from the person who's installing it. All of those people need different pieces of information. And so making it very easy for them to do that. Also, Tim hinted at it earlier, which is why I think we're on website right now, but he talked about SEO a little bit. So I'm going to leave that for him to dig into. But at the end of the day, and I said it a little bit earlier, it needs to be easy to understand. And so using language that are acronyms or only your team would fully understand it is not doing you any service. It's not helping anybody. So the best advice that I've ever received and that I could potentially give to the people that are designing the websites is explain it like you're explaining it to your grandparent in a very succinct way. We don't need a full story, but that's the best way to do it. So to make sure that nothing gets lost in translation, because that's when the frustration happens, is when things aren't clear and there's some lost translation that's happening between what you think you're saying and what people are actually reading or seeing or hearing.
Tim, your turn. What is? How do you feel about most building material manufacturers' websites?
Well, I love the progress that's being made. I'm seeing a lot of progress. I'm seeing a lot of improvement, and I think part of that is because Google's changed their algorithm so many times, and people have had to adapt to that, and that has a lot to do with usability. The thing I think about most when I'm looking at a website, and we actually went through this when I was at Nichiha. We were part of a task force and working on many different things, and on the complete new redesign, and the entire tech stack had to be rebuilt. And so it was kind of a fascinating process. And what we thought about a lot was easy to buy, easy to sell. It's not just got to be easy for the customer, the client, the people researching. It's got to be easy for your internal folks to use, to direct people to the back end tools that integrate with it. Easy to buy, easy to sell is a great combination. And the optics that I feel like building product manufacturers and LBMs should have when they're looking at their website. And some of those are little tweaks and some of them are big redesigns, but that's sort of how I think about things. I think it's getting better. There's less chest pounding that I see out there and less all about us. And there's more of the understanding that customers at the end of the day don't care about us. They really care about getting their need filled. So I think I am really glad to see the improvements being made in the industry that way.
Love it. I think that's great. Less chest pounding. That's better for everybody. So look how great we are. That's fantastic. All right. Last question for everyone. And what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
This might be a little bit repetitive, but to sum it all up, everyone has opinion and perspective. And if you open your eyes and shut your mouth, you might learn something, which I have had reiterated to me lately because I'm reading You're Not Listening by Kate Murphy. And it talks about improving your listening skills. And it's something that I'm working on and I think will probably be working on for the rest of my life. But now that I can have some better tools to actively listen and absorb and hear what people are saying and making sure that I'm clarifying that I'm hearing them correctly, life has gotten a lot easier.
Yeah, I'll
Michaela,
echo
same
that.
question.
Listening is the one that I jotted down as well, and specifically the power of suspending urgency of other things, whether that's coming up with the next thing you're going to say, or maybe the meeting's gone a little long and you're realizing you're itching to get over to your next thing to do. Just pushing that aside, suspending that urgency, and truly listening just to understand with no other agenda. I think that's so powerful and gets you to such a deeper understanding. And then related to that, with the work that we do, it's pairing qualitative research with the quantitative, because the qualitative is going to, the quantitative will tell you whether your hypothesis is true or false. You'll get that information, but the qualitative is really the missing piece so often because it gives you the answers to the questions that you didn't even realize you should be asking. And those are often the most useful things that we find. It's the things that we didn't put into the survey. We got it from the write-ins because we didn't know we needed to ask that.
Tim, same question. Best piece of advice you've ever
Yeah.
received. Somebody, you have to go last, and we've already heard some really good ones. So,
Oh no! So my first thought when I saw this question was the line from Dwight Schrute in The Office, where he was asked what the best piece of advice that Michael Scott gave him was, and he said, "Don't be an idiot." When I'm going to do something, I ask myself, if an idiot would do this thing, would they? And if they would, then I do not do that thing. And one of the idiot things I do is when I don't listen. So I think that I'd echo what Deanna and Michaela said. And one of the great actionable things about that is, and I see it from Todd and John all the time, where they ask people to disagree or they want to learn, and that gives us real solid anecdotal that will either inform new research or a deeper dive and allow us to give really actionable flash insights to folks. And our clients, that's one of the biggest things they actually depend on us for, along with our research. So I think that's really fun. And the other thing that listening can do is it can, let's say you listen to all the call recordings of customer service. Could that inform the FAQs for your website? Could that inform new blog content? And there's one company that I know of that does an internal podcast of customer service calls. So they're aggregated together, and it's sent to all the managers to listen to 10, 15 minutes a day. That tells you a lot. So listening can inform a lot of things in our businesses.
Especially in the digital age, there's so many things that you can do to make life easier to be able to listen to that. What you used to have to do and I'm dating myself here, what you used to have to do on a cassette tape, now you can just email it to me. Email me the file. So that's great advice. Listening all around. I love it. Thank you all so very much for being a part of this groundbreaking, first time ever panel discussion. You guys did a fantastic job. Yeah, thumbs up all the way, and I appreciate it. And of course, as you know, we like to hang out on LinkedIn, but what we're going to do is we're going to take this information, we're going to take this episode, we're going to chop it up into some nice, we're going to take your pearls of wisdom that you have shared with us, and we're going to share it out through Manobyte's LinkedIn and all sorts of places on the website. So, of course, if you could share that as well, we would greatly appreciate it. So it isn't over yet, because everyone has a chance to really be a part of this. You can rewatch this on YouTube. Plenty of rewatching moments, the moments when I forgot to unmute myself, and of course your your pearls of wisdom, your golden moments, your what I like to call rewind moments, where you just go back and you listen to it again because it's such good advice. So thank you for joining me on today's episode. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot, everyone.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. All right, so we just want to thank everyone that have been here. You've been watching and listening to, if you're listening to the podcast sometime in the future, the future of American living spaces and how manufacturers should respond. So manufacturers out there, I hope you were listening, because we put together a great panel of 3 people, and thank you so much. I'm so glad they were able to join us today. That was really a fun episode to do. So if you liked what you're hearing, please like and subscribe us on all the socials. But as I mentioned earlier, Manobyte likes to hang out the most on LinkedIn. So like and follow us there, because this way you'll know the next time that we go live. And speaking of which, the next time we go live, we are going to be talking with Grant Farnsworth on August 17th. That'll be at 2 p.m. when we usually go live every second and fourth Tuesday of the month. But August is just special in our hearts, because we're going to do 3 episodes, and we kicked it off with this great panel of 3 fantastic people. So next episode will be on August 17th at 2 p.m. And then join us on the very last day of this month, which is August 31st. That's a Tuesday at 2 p.m. We're going to bring back Amy Post, and we're going to check in with her and some of the insights that she has for us. And so, until next time, please like and follow us on any one of the socials here. But like I said, we enjoy hanging out on LinkedIn. So thank you for watching. And if you're listening sometime in the future, thank you for listening to the podcast. You, of course, can catch the podcast on all your favorite podcast places. Wherever you like to play around with podcasts, that's where you can be. So thanks for joining us today live. And until next time, whatever life unboxes for you, may it be great.